And it's really hard for me to explain to anybody what it was like, but there was just some energy inside that almost made it just impossible to sit there in stillness. I can't even say exactly what that energy is because it doesn't fit the normal defining terms. It wasn't exactly anxiety, it wasn't fear exactly, it wasn't dread, it wasn't any of those things, but it wasn't unrelated to that either. It was just kind of an energy that made me feel so uncomfortable that I tried to stick with it and stick with it and stick with it. And one day I just cracked. It just cracked me. It broke me, literally. And I wrote a note to the teacher and I pinned it on the door because, and of course you weren't supposed to leave without telling somebody because, of course, at a retreat they're concerned about you. They want to know what's happened to you. So they want you to tell them if you're going to be leaving. But I was so humiliated by the whole thing, so defeated that I pinned the note, the little note on the door of the teacher, and I scurried out to the parking lot, and I drove away when everybody was in the meditation hall. And it was such a devastating experience, such a defeat that I was driving home, and I really felt like, okay, this is it. I really gave it my best shot, this whole spiritual thing, my quest for enlightenment. I really thought that I had had some really significant opening, and look at, here I am completely broken leaving this retreat. I really, truly felt this is it. I gave it my best shot and I failed, and I guess this isn't for me. I guess I'm not cut out for me. And I was so sort of devastated that I didn't even have resistance to it. I almost didn't feel anything. I didn't feel bad about it. I didn't feel good about it. It was kind of like being numb. I just didn't feel, I just knew that this is it. I failed, and life will be something different. And so I drove home, and I got home, and literally right as I stopped the car, a little voice came into my head, and it said, just stop, just park the car, walk straight through the house, from the front door through the back door, and go right into your meditation hut. So I thought this little voice was kind of nutty because I'd just given up the whole thing. I'd just been totally and absolutely defeated. But I felt so defeated, I felt like I had no sort of egoic willpower, that I just did what the voice said. And I just went into the house, went right out the back door, sat down in the meditation hut that I'd built, because I didn't have anything to not do, to push against it. And I sat down, and I just sat there, not trying to do anything, not trying to make anything happen. As far as I was concerned, this whole thing was over, done. And within a couple of minutes, just sitting there, sort of defeated, this amazing grace descended upon me. And it was this overwhelming experience of love. Absolutely overwhelming. Bigger by, orders of magnitude than I'd ever experienced before. Just absolutely immense. And in the experiencing of it, everything was absolutely suffused with this experience of love. And I just sat there, and it was just sort of pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring into me. And then I had this strange thing happen. It was literally like a biblical voice. Now, I've mentioned this voice in my head a couple times. I didn't go around with voices in my head much, or visions, or any of those kind of things. That wasn't really a big part of my spirituality. But this very distinct voice, almost like the voice of God, and the voice simply said, "This is how I love you, and this is how you shall love all things." It was like a commandment or something. And I just got it, that what is beyond me as an incarnate being, this is the embrace of infinite love that it holds me and everything in. But the key is it wasn't just revealing this love for me to bathe in and me to simply receive. It said, and this is how you shall love all things and all beings. So in a certain sense, it was also a commandment. This is what you are to do. This is what you are to embody. This is how you are to move through life. Of course, how does one do that? I didn't even have the foggiest notion of what that would be, but I didn't, I was so taken with the experience, I didn't really worry about that. Well, to make a long story short, that evening, the teacher called up and said, so, I noticed you left. Why did you leave? And I said, gee, I really don't know, because I really didn't know. I couldn't define why I left, I just said, I don't know. And the teacher just said, well, why don't you come back? And I said, okay. And we hung up the phone. That was the conversation. It was like 30 seconds. I just had no resistance in me. And so like a leaf being blown in the wind, the next morning I got in the car and I drove back up to the retreat site, and I'm walking into the meditation hall. Just after I got back, the meditation was going to start, and the bell was ringing to call people back into the hall. And I was one of the last people to walk into the hall. And as I walked in, one of the senior students, who was sort of there's a Buddhist name for it, but basically they're sort of the retreat leader, you could say, in charge of the structure of the retreat. He was this old senior student, and this guy just looked at me, and he just said, as I was just about to step in the door, he said, you shouldn't have left, and you shouldn't have come back. And it was the most amazing thing, because when he said that infinity of love that I was experiencing didn't budge. It didn't move. It wasn't diminished. In fact, I felt such gratitude for this guy for saying that, because he showed me, he helped me see that even somebody saying you shouldn't have left and you shouldn't have come back can't budge this quality of redemptive love. Nothing, it's not pushed around, it's not intimidated, it's not diminished by anything in the world of time. And he helped me to see that. So I actually felt this great love for him. I just wanted to give him, hug him, but I knew, we're at a Zen retreat, better not start hugging him right now. And I went into the door and I sat in meditation, and the rest of the retreat went along fine. It was lovely. But it was sort of birthed from this sort of deep defeat of the remnants of the ego. Even with that great, huge opening I had before this retreat, there was still those remnants of ego. And boy, did they kick themselves up during that retreat when I went. They went absolutely crazy. They are what forced me out of that. I just couldn't take it. And I just let go. I was completely and utterly defeated. And there it came, the grace of redemptive love. And everything was suddenly okay. The leaving was okay, the coming back was okay, what anybody said to me okay, anything that had ever happened in my life was okay. Everything was suffused in this kind of love, and it was literally like being cleansed from the inside out. Just cleansed. All the resistance, all the judgment, all the shame, everything was just sort of cleansed out of the system in this love. And I never forgot that it wasn't just something that was given to me for my own benefit. It wasn't a grace that was revealed just to heal myself. That this was actually this was what I was to embody. Now, obviously, I knew as an ego there was no possibility. Couldn't even begin. Absolutely couldn't even begin. So I knew the ego cannot embody this. One of the other things I knew, that in the depth of my being, that this is what I was. This is an aspect of my essential nature, as it is an aspect of all beings' essential nature.